I play a lot of Fortnite.
If you go back to the 2021 Champions League final, which took place between Manchester City and Chelsea, pay attention to Chelsea's front three. It consisted of Kai Havertz, Mason Mount and Timo Werner. Chelsea won that final despite Manchester City being overwhelming favourites. The game ended 1-0, a goal from Kai Havertz assisted by Mason Mount. Now, that Chelsea team under Thomas Tuchel has basically been ripped apart. The only consistent first team player, if you can even use that, still at the club just 3 years later is Reece James. But today I want to specifically look at that front three. Kai Havertz, Timo Werner and Mason Mount all left Chelsea in a bad manner. And to be honest, I don't think any of the three of them are in that great a position. But in terms of the relationship with Chelsea and the fans, I think it's safe to say that all three of them are not missed by the Chelsea fans. Granted, for different reasons, however, certainly not missed. So today I want to take a deep look into these three players. What went wrong for them at Chelsea, what's went wrong for them in their careers, and just look at why everything didn't work out. I'm going to start with the player who Chelsea fans probably dislike the least, so let's start with Timo Werner. Timo Werner made his professional debut in 2013 for Stuttgart and would stay at the club until 2016 when he would then sign for RB Leipzig. At RB Leipzig he was one of the most informed strikers in the world. 159 games for the club seen him score 95 goals. Then in 2020, for just over €50 million, whilst being wanted by Barcelona, Liverpool and Manchester United, Timo Werner moved to Chelsea. And to be honest, Timo Werner's time at Chelsea could only be described as hilarious. He scored 23 goals in 89 games, which for a striker, despite playing a lot of his games on the wing, for an attacking player for that amount of money was a real letdown. However, some of the chances that Timo Werner missed whilst playing for Chelsea were just absolutely comical. Honestly, some of them looked harder to miss than to score. And to prove my point, here's my personal 5 favourites. Disaster at Chelsea. He left the club to go back to Leipzig for €20 million in 2022 and would stay there until January 2024. He'd play 54 games in that time and score another 18 goals. Not great, but not terrible, certainly better than what he was doing at Chelsea. And from then until now he has been on loan at Tottenham Hotspur. A bold move to go to a rival of the team that you won the Champions League with. However, again, his time back at Tottenham Hotspur has been an absolute disaster. He's played 40 games for the club and only scored 3 goals. And current manager Ange Postecoglou has scapegoated him a million times.
You can never make it. You're supposed to be a dinner man, serving dinner to the students in the secondary school.
I don't know if it's even scapegoating, he's just been terrible. He is only on loan at Tottenham and I cannot see any world in which they choose to buy him permanently. It looks like he will be returning back to RB Leipzig. Werner was always a weird presence at Chelsea and even now at Spurs. A really talented player in terms of having an unbelievable amount of pace. He just couldn't ever find that goal scoring ability again that he had when he was at Leipzig. Werner's a player that Chelsea fans don't miss but probably don't hate. Right now he's probably more disliked by the fans of the team that he plays for and his manager. Okay, let's move on to Kai Havertz, a player that Chelsea fans will definitely hate. Havertz was the original Florian Wirtz. He made his debut in 2016 for Bayer Leverkusen and would stay with them until September 2020. He'd play 150 games and score 46 goals for Leverkusen. A really talented number 10, great attacking mid. He was bought for €80 million by Chelsea in September, and it looked like Chelsea had one of the world's brightest talents in their team. He was never great at Chelsea. He played 139 games and scored 32 goals, however one of them was in a Champions League final. He also won the Super Cup and the Club World Cup whilst at Chelsea, so he did win major European trophies. However, he received a lot of criticism, mainly just for being underwhelming at times, a bit of a letdown at others, but generally just not consistent enough and just not that great. He was never the worst player on the park, but he was rarely ever the best player on the park. You felt as if Kai Havertz was sort of almost living off of the fact that he scored the winner in a Champions League final.
I mean, it's alright, like, overrated as fuck in my opinion. I mean,
without that, it's hard to believe that he would have ever had as much leniency at Chelsea as what he did for how poor and just boring some of his performances were, especially with the struggles that Chelsea were having at times. However, I think the reason that Kai Havertz will be so hated by Chelsea fans is mainly because of the way he left. Chelsea basically received the majority of the money back that they paid for him. €75 million seen him go from Chelsea to Arsenal. Money that Chelsea had no reason to turn down. It was a weird signing for Arsenal. No one could really understand at the time why they would go for a player who was in such poor form. But the manner of it, Kai Havertz actually started his talks with Arsenal whilst at teammate Kepa Arrizabalaга's wedding, sort of poking fun at the club, and has been really critical of Chelsea and very complimentary of Arsenal since leaving. However, at the time of recording at least, he's not won anything with Arsenal and has really started to be questioned in recent months for whether or not he's actually good enough at Arsenal. He's played 82 games for Arsenal and scored 28 goals, but that has been through one of Arsenal's golden spells in the last 25 years. And it's really sad to see. It's not uncommon for players to leave Arsenal and go to Chelsea, or leave Chelsea and go to Arsenal. A lot of the time this does really sour the relationship between the original club and the fans. But do you know how toxic and how bitter you have to be this resented and hated by a fan base that you literally scored the winner in a Champions League final for? Kai Havertz clearly wasn't happy by his treatment from the Chelsea fans during his time there, which he's perfectly entitled to do, and you have to sort of hold your hands up and say fair enough. However, I definitely think he's put a lot of pressure on himself for his time at Arsenal. At first, he was really liked, and Arsenal fans are always a fan base that will give attackers time and really hype them up when they are playing well. But recently, when Arsenal have been struggling, he's not been living up to the bill, sort of like what was happening at Chelsea. When push comes to shove, when it's time to dig deep, he tends to go missing or just simply underperform. And he's firmly burnt his boats at Chelsea, so if he wants to leave a legacy in English football, it's looking like it's going to need to be with Arsenal. However, I don't know if I can see him topping winning a Champions League with his current fan base. The final player I want to talk about is then Mason Mount. In that Champions League final, Mason Mount actually got the assist for Kai Havertz's goal. In Chelsea's academy from the age of 8, he was seen by the Chelsea fans as really one of their own. Given his debut by Frank Lampard, he started his career in 2017 on loan to Vitesse, which he done really well. The following year, he made his debut under Frank Lampard at Derby County. Lampard was then given the Chelsea job in July 2019, and Mason Mount would be given his chance at Chelsea by Frank Lampard. 195 games seen Mason Mount score 33 goals. A lot of the time he was played as a central midfielder though, so those numbers aren't that bad. An academy prospect that Chelsea fans always sort of felt at the very least would play for the badge. Someone that they trusted and thought would never turn their back on them. Well, in 2023, after some contract disputes, Mason Mount left Chelsea for €65 million to sign for Manchester United. At the time of recording, since then, 18 months on, he has played 33 times for Manchester United and only scored this one single goal. His injury record at Manchester United has been atrocious. He's fell out of the England squad and no one really cares about Mason Mount anymore. At Chelsea, he sort of had the world at his feet. Granted, his last few months at Chelsea he really dropped off, but especially in that Champions League winning side, Mount was seen as one of the most influential and one of the most important players. And now there's a case and an argument for him potentially being in the same category as Dele Alli. I don't know if I can see Mason Mount turning his career around at Manchester United. I don't know if I can see Mason Mount turning his career around at all. He looks sort of just burst, done, deflated. He's obviously got a good wage at United, a great contract, which is the main reason why he left. But even then again, in the manner he left, to just release a sort of online acknowledgement video to say that he was leaving to go to Manchester United didn't sit well with a lot of Chelsea fans who they genuinely believed Mason Mount was a part of the Chelsea fan base. The toxicity around Manchester United as well really isn't helping, and with the money that they spent on him and the wages that he's on, it could only be a matter of time if things don't improve at United, if Mason Mount doesn't improve at United, before he's really started to be seen as being part of the problem. But this was just my thoughts on 3 players who I found to be quite interesting. Undeniably, 3 great players who are all Champions League winners, and I don't think any of the 3 of them are in particularly good places at their current clubs. They're not older players either, the oldest one being Timo Werner at just 28. It'll be interesting to see how their careers go, it'll be interesting to see if any of them can pick their form back up. I mean, the most likely one looks like it's going to be Kai Havertz. His career since, if you look at all 3 of their careers since leaving Chelsea, Havertz is easily the best player. But even then, I think there's a lot of questions surrounding him, and his position isn't as comfortable as you might think. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think. That's all from me today, and I will see everyone in the next video.